Based on the acclaimed comic series by Mark Millar and Frank Quitely, Netflix's Jupiter's Legacy explores the saga of 6 Americans who are granted superpowers by a mysterious cosmic force. The season finale, titled How It All Ends, answers a big question from the premiere by revealing the nefarious mind behind all of the Union's current strife. Let's use a bit of supervision and dive into the ending of Season 1 and look at the big brain-bending twist that happened during the final minutes. A villain was revealed, but it wasn't who the series had been teasing. Not to get in the weeds too much here, but it's important to touch on the crappy crucible Sheldon and the others had to endure in order to get their powers. Especially since Brandon and Chloe know the story very well and actively address how the Union elders see their powers more as a gift because of what they went through to obtain them. Anyhow, Sheldon, with brother Walter, BFF George, future wife Grace, factory worker Fitz, and Dr. Richard Conrad, went through hell and back to get their prize, never once knowing what was at the end of their journey or whether or not it was all a delusion or death trap from the start. Sheldon began seeing visions, as well as his dead father, shortly after his father's funeral, and after learning precise coordinates and being shown who was to accompany him on his quest, sailed into the heart of a living storm with his brave band of fools. Eventually, after nearly turning on each other every step of the way, the gang trekked across a phantom island and learned that they weren't the first cluster of 6 to have been called to this unmapped location. It was all a test, and Sheldon's 6 were the first to pass. They were the first to realize that resisting the worst of human nature was the key to ascension. The remains of those who failed showed them their fate if they didn't learn to put all their differences aside, and with that, they were transported to one of Jupiter's moons where alien energy took the form of specific dead loved ones and then gifted them all with powers. What should they do with their powers? They all agreed that these abilities were meant to benefit humanity, but how? America in the 30s was going through the throes of the Great Depression, and the Union all agreed that the country was teetering on the edge of disaster. They seemed to feel like they could do better than the bumbling politicians of the era, but to what extent? Very telling, Walter, aka Brainwave, mentioned that they were given superpowers so we could rule the world. We discover in the finale that he wasn't joking. In the finale, Hutch, having been abandoned by his usual heist crew, got his hands on a power cell capable of punching a hole through the strongest being on the planet. Was he going to use it on Utopian? New girlfriend Chloe assumed he wanted it as protection against her father. It turned out, though, that Hutch was going to use it to find his own father. And where is Skyfox? Given all that happened in the finale, it's entirely possible that Skyfox is imprisoned somewhere, or even dead. We were led to believe that he'd been pulling strings this whole time, enacting some horrid scheme from the shadows that involved cloning the supervillain Blackstar and setting that clone loose on a rampage that took 3 lives, but given the twist in the finale, it's only Skyfox's name that's important at this time. The name is enough to convince just about anyone that George is out there, right now, causing everyone ample amounts of grief. We already knew that Walter was more sympathetic toward Brandon and some of the other young heroes who were suffering huge losses and questioning the Union's code, but we didn't know that he was manipulating the events that were actively causing this fierce friction. He'd cloned Blackstar, and in doing so, took the lives of 3 heroes. He forced the situation where Brandon had to choose between Blackstar's life and his father's. Walter also orchestrated the real Blackstar escaping his cell and the showdown between that brute and the headlining father-son team, and it was a collision that showed poor Brandon how Sheldon's code was more important to him than his own son. Okay, Sheldon was about to break that code. He was a second or 2 away from murdering Blackstar with his eye blast and saving his son, but before he could do it, Petra saved him. All of this was meant to create a rift, a division that Walter could take advantage of so that he would sooner than later become the new leader of the Union. You want to split apart the Utopian from his son, Walter's telepathic daughter Raiku says, having been mentally privy to her dad's devious designs. Not only did Raiku know her pop was behind the Blackstar clone and the real Blackstar breakout, but she knew he was trying to pin the entire plot on Skyfox, who Walter seemed fairly confident would never surface to defend himself, leading more credence to the speculation that Skyfox is trapped or dead. It was Walter's idea to risk it all by entering the Blackstar clone's reanimated brain to discover the identity of the cloning culprit, but it was Grace's idea to recruit his estranged daughter for extra brain power. This means that Walter knew once Raiku's name was brought up, he'd most likely have to kill her. Raiku's powers would let her in on Walter's sinister scheme. She'd know that he basically faked a fight with Skyfox inside Blackstar's mind. Heck, he even made it so Grace would be a witness to it all, as well as see a frightful vision of the future showing Sheldon and Brandon dead, never knowing she'd been duped. True, Raiku's not exactly a beacon of virtue, so it might have been possible to buy her off. Her price was $50 million to keep quiet, but that would never come with a guarantee. It would be safer just to kill her, which Walter does in the finale, tricking his daughter with a bit of mental magic and then slicing her throat. This country is spiraling out of control thanks to Sheldon's laissez-faire attitude, Walter scoffed. Then we see Walter comforting Sheldon after the prison battle with Blackstar, offering support to his brother over the idea that Brandon is growing further and further away from him. At any point on the show before this, we wouldn't have doubted Walter's sentiments towards his family. Now we know it's all lies meant to drive a wedge so that Walter can take Brandon under his wing. So what did you think of the end of Jupiter's Legacy Season 1, and what do you hope to see in Season 2? Let us know in the comments, and for more on Jupiter's Legacy, check out our review of Season 1, and watch the cast break down their own superpowers. And as always, be sure to follow and subscribe wherever you like to watch IGN.